at that
mana check. I mean, look at it. Just holding it down. Alright guys, the quad damage Sorceress. So, first off, why does this build do so much damage? And on top of that, well, what is actually giving us our damage? So it's actually several sources. There is of course Fireball, there's actually Ball Lightning, there is 2 different sources of X-Falls. One of them is off of Blizzard, and one of them is on the fire ticks that we're going to be getting. So, to explain how this kind of works and why it's doing so much damage, let's first off just show off Blizzard damage here, because this is all going to tie into kind of how the build plays. So you can see the different amount of damage you can hit for a couple million here with Blizzard. On average, 3 mil is going to be like kind of like your higher breakpoints for the numbers over here. Activating your fireballs as well as those ball lightnings, that's how we're going to have basically unlimited resource. Now, on top of the damage that's already dealt with Blizzard that is pretty high via the X-Falls, okay? The normal Blizzard, it'll hit for like 100k, but if you watch, there will be also other ticks that it will hit for millions, and those other ticks are actually not from Blizzard because we're not even casting it now. What we're actually casting is Fireball and Ball Lightning, which can both have their own separate lucky hit chances on X-Falls. So that is how we're also getting extra bonus damage. And obviously, yeah, you can keep on spamming it. As long as there is a group, you'll see that the mana is pretty dang good in most scenarios. It does rely on lucky hits, so sometimes it may dip down, but on average, as long as there are, you know, some enemies, you're going to be a-okay. If you want to play Jabalts, you can. It's optional. I also have gameplay without even running the Ball Lightning without Jabalts. It's kind of up to you and how much defensive stats that you want to go all in, or if you want to go and have more defenses, that is another option. So why do we want quad damage? Basically, different sources of damage. It's actually going to be quite big for the Abattoir of Zir. And I have to bring up the live stream that was actually posted recently, and let me just play it out for you so it'll make sense.
On the actual sigil itself, I think one difference here is that, like, I'm not aware of what afflictions I'm going to encounter.
So, an affliction for these different sigils, there's positives and negatives. So, to go over just a few real quick that can actually be pretty big, and this is one thing that you cannot see when you open up these new Abattoir of Zir. So, for example, over here you can see where monsters take less physical damage. There's other ones over here where you may deal more damage, but monsters take less fire damage. You actually have no idea what the heck the afflictions are, and some of these could be pretty big. You can lose out like half of your damage over here, and that could be pretty big. This one's weird. It gives you extra frost damage, but then also less cold damage. So there are going to be ones where maybe you can get a huge bonus to lightning damage. Lightning, cold, fire, any of those that would be bonus would be good. And if there's one bad one, well, you still have 2 other sources of damage that you can actually deal. Technically, there's also poison because of the different vampiric power. But that's why running like a multi-damage may be huge for Abattoir of Zir. Guys, let's go ahead and hop into one of the best Sorceress builds in the game. You can easily reach 15k armor, max resistance, and obviously, I mean, it does insane damage. So let's go ahead and hop into basically the best build I think we've ever seen in the entire game. It's so cool that you get all of these elements and it just does crazy amounts of damage. So starting right off, let's go ahead and go over the skills. We'll go over the equipment, we'll go over the gems, the powers, and then we're going to hop into the skill tree and the Paragon Board. So for starters, the skills, we've got Fireball and Blizzard. So Fireball is our source of DPS. And then we have Blizzard. This is also another source of DPS, but you only really need to activate it on elite packs. But if you are doing the Abattoir of Zir, I'm sure you're going to be able to maybe activate it a little bit more frequently, as it's a pretty good source of damage. But for right now, we're just deleting Sigil 100, so only on elites and or bosses for Blizzard here. And then we have our defensive skills, which is basically all of them. So if anything goes wrong, activate Flame Shield, Ice Armor, Frost Nova, and move out of the way with Teleport. All of them are just defensive stats. So the only skill that you can really swap out is Frost Nova. If you want to run Inferno, that is an option as well. That is the ultimate that sucks everything in, which is kind of cool. And then for the enchantments, we are running Ball Lightning or Fireball, and then we are running the Fire Bolt. So as far as the skills and enchantments, that's what we run. Next up, the equipment. So we're going to be running Harlequin Crest, but if you don't have it, in the notes, I have a bunch of things down below here. It kind of explains what you can swap in and out, but you can see just right over here, you're looking for maximum life, total armor, intelligence, maximum mana. All of those stats are great if you don't happen to have a Harlequin Crest. This build still absolutely will be shredding content. And then next up, we're looking for the aspect of Disobedience, and then maximum life, damage reduction from enemies that are burning, total armor, damage reduction. And then for the gloves Illuminator, excellent because it lets Fireball actually bounce. This one, there's not really something you can swap it out with. This is easy to get though, don't worry about it. Next up, we just have Ever-Living Aspect or to Bolt. That's another option you can play over here. Speaking of other options, the chest piece, if you want to, you can run Ryment if you're doing low tier content, but if you're looking to do Avatar of Zir and the harder Sigil 100s, then yeah, you probably don't want to run that because you're going to be taking a massive amount of damage. But Ever-Living Aspect is excellent as well. It just gives you damage reduction from crowd controlled or vulnerable. And then we want Maximum Life, damage reduction, armor. And then next up in the boots category, we're going to be running Esu's Heirloom. So this build will reach way over 100% crit, but Esu's Heirloom allows things to not be perfect. It also gives you resource cost reduction. I know it doesn't say it here in the stats, but it does give you resource cost reduction. Alternatively, if you want to run Flicker Step, that is another option. If you want to run the Penitent Greaves, those are all great options as well. Or you can just run a rare pair of boots that will give you extra sources of maybe damage reduction while injured. Those are all great too. If you're looking for a really defensive pair of boots, you can get any sort of dodge chance. That is excellent as well. But just getting movement speed is kind of key because your Ravenous will give you bonus damage based off of your movement speed. The bonus with Esu's that you get though is we have 100% crit. We have way over 100%. The bonus crit after 100% really comes down to just the flat crit strike chance that you get. And that is going to be pretty much just for the X-Falls, or if you have really bad rolls on your pieces of gear, like your gloves are absolutely terrible and the rolled like bottom, then it can still help out, but you can swap these out if you want to. And it's because X-Falls, Blizzard, and Fire dot damage, those are not considered core skills or mastery skills, so therefore they will not have 100% crit. Then next up we have the aspect of Ancient Flame in our weapon. We want to run a wand for lucky hit chance. We're looking for int and all stats, and then crit strike damage, damage to burning enemies, vulnerable damage, those are all great. Don't look for core skill because core skill is not going to be our main source of all of our damage. We have, remember, quad damage here. So on top of that, if you want to, you guys are seeing gameplay of the pure Fireball. If you want to, instead of Ball Lightning, you can just play Fireball. It actually, in theory, gives you faster clear speeds. And if you're just doing Sigil 100s, I mean, this build absolutely just tears that up. And then we are running Elementalist Aspect in our Amulet slot. It's important, it has to be in the Amulet because that will give you 60% crit as long as you have 100 or above in mana when you are casting a core skill or a mastery skill. So that's how we're going to get an insane amount of crit. And we're looking for specifically movement speed, total armor, mana cost reduction, just damage reduction. Any of those stats are going to be ideal here. You can also get plus to mastery. It's actually not that bad, even though we are primarily a Fireball build. Ball Lightning still does a huge source of our damage, and Blizzard actually can deal pretty decent damage in Sigil 100 as well, but it's mostly with the X-Falls proc. But the small amount of damage you get for Blizzard, I mean, just getting it up to like anywhere from 50 to 150k is still okay in, like, again, Sigil 100s. And then we are running X-Falls over here, so that's great. What you want on X-Falls, though, is actually the highest damage on the lucky hit, as well as the lucky hit flat chance. Cooldown reduction doesn't really help out for an insane amount. All stats is okay, though. And then with Tall Rashes, we're just looking for the unique power of that 15% being the max roll, and then also non-phys damage, as well as our lucky hit chance, because that's how we're going to be activating the Ball Lightnings that we get with our enchantment. But if you don't want to run it, well, then that's totally fine. You can still benefit off of lucky hit to get extra resource because it's a part of our resource. Then for our offhand, it's really important that you get specifically that lucky hit chance, that fourth one that I have right here. That is the most important thing, as well as getting mana cost reduction. The rest of the stats, if you want to get crit strike chance, that's awesome. You can get intelligence, you can get all stats, you can get a lot of different things here. You can even get damage reduction here. So that is it for the equipment. There are a few different swaps, and again, it's in the notes on the Mobalytics page. If you guys want to, swap things out, you're like, man, I'm having mana problems. I don't happen to have these rolls on like the chance to restore primary resource. There's options down below in the little box over here that will help you out. And then on top of that, as far as our gems, we're running the Emerald, Ruby, and Skulls. This build will get massive amount of resistances, so Skulls here will be ideal. Then for the Vampiric Powers, we're going to be running Ravenous, Prey on the Weak, and a Curse Touch. These are kind of the bread and butter in like 99% of any good build. And then for the optional ones, we can run Undying, we can run Resilience, we can run Infection, and we can also run Domination. And that is because the fire skills will have a chance to immobilize once we go over the skill tree. Now, there's a bunch of notes here. Again, if you're having any problems, just read it. It'll probably solve your problem. But if you have also additional problems, let me know in the comments, and I'll also just add it over here. So next up, as far as the skill tree. So in the very beginning, beginning. The first 2 skill points do not matter at all because they're just used to progress. Then we're running Fireball, and this is something different than the previous build that we made, which is Destructive Fireball. We want this instead of the .1, so that's going to be good. And then just extra mana and extra damage over there. And then next up, towards the bottom, we are going to be getting just 1 point into Flame Shield. If you have Shaco, you don't need to put a point into it, but that can be added as well. Then we're running Teleport. We want to get Shimmering Teleport. Optional if you want to swap out a Glass Cannon, that's fine. Elemental 2-minute is excellent. Frost Nova and then Enhanced Frost Nova. This is optional if you want to. You can play Inferno the ultimate instead of that. Then we're running extra Lucky Hit, extra Survivability over here. And then we're running Blizzard, and we have 2 options here with Blizzard. So we could run this one over here. We can run Wizard's Blizzard to give us extra mana cost reduction if you are having mana issues, or we can run Mage's Blizzard to increase the duration so we don't have to cast it as often. Pretty much it's just you cast it once on an Elite Pack and it'll usually melt out faster, but if you want to, you can play this one. It's up to you. If you have mana problems, play this one. If you don't, then play the other one. And then all of these are just so good, man. The Inner Flames, the Devouring Blaze, Crippling Flames, this one is so dang good. Being able to just immobilize the enemies is huge because, well, they're not going to be doing damage. Then we're running Ball Lightning over here because it's another source of damage. If you don't want to play Ball Lightning enchant, then don't put points into it. But Ball Lightning is a huge source of damage. I would not skip out on it. But in the open world, I was messing around with like Ryments as well as just playing with the Fireball enchant, and you're just going to be seeing me do some Hell Tides. And the clear speed is unreal with the Fireball enchant. I mean, like, look at the amount of clear speed that we have that like you just don't get with anything else. It just, you throw one Fireball and it just chain reacts and just does a domino effect. It's one of the greatest things ever. But if you are having mana problems, you can still run Ball Lightning, and then you want to run the Wizard's Ball Lightning. You can remove points at a Glass Cannon. You can go to Static Discharge and then get the Invigorating Conduit, and you can just pick up the balls. I never was a fan of the gameplay of picking up the balls, just because it slows down your DPS. I just want to do maximum DPS the whole time. I don't want to have to stop, pause, walk around, activate Tibalts, so I like this. You can still play Tibalts. It's optional. I'll put it in the notes. Still great. Then we get extra mana with Fiery Surge, but you can also play Inferno as well if you want to play this. Grouping up the enemies is actually really good, especially when there's a giant pack and you have like the Fireball enchant. Oh man, it's just so good because when all the small enemies die, each one of their deaths will spawn a fireball, making it so the elites just all die instantly. It's just one of the most satisfying things to actually play. Or if you're doing any bosses, this also gives you infinite mana. So if you want to, again, swap out the Frost Nova if you want to run Inferno. I did it with a couple clips. And then obviously Essus, because it's the best thing in the entire game. One of the craziest things, you get extra crit strike chance as well as damage. And on top of that, you will also be able to get that bonus proc off of the bonuses with the aspects. So now that we went over the skill tree, let's go over the Paragon Board. It's important that you guys copy the Paragon Board exactly because we reach mana nodes and some of these yellow nodes must be met in order to get these, and the order does matter. So starting right off from the very beginning, we get a bunch of life. I made this build very tanky because that seems to be the thing that we need to tackle with the Abattoir of Zir for the new content. And this over here is going to be in the starter board, so Elementalist in the starter board. And then next up, we are going to be running Exploit, and that is on the Enchantment Master board. And then we're going to be moving on to the Searing Heat board, and we are going to be getting Destruction on this board. We're also going to be picking up the legendary node Searing Heat, so that's going to be our first legendary node. And then we're going to be moving on to Elemental Summoner on Flame Feeder, and we're going to be putting some points over there. And we're also going to be reaching these mana nodes. This is very important that you hit the requirements for specifically getting the mana, which will require 430 willpower, but it should be pretty easy because X-Falls guarantees you all stats. You can also get all stats on one of your pieces of gear. That will really help out. And then we have Frigid Fate as our final one, giving us the extra bonus. I know it says it's based off your cold damage, but non-physical gives you poison damage, fire damage, lightning damage, and shadow damage. We will reach this without problem. You can get it anywhere from, you just need 300. Actually, it's like 290 because it does round up. But you can reach this very, very easy with this build because we scale all of the non-physical, and the locations of the glyphs will give you bonuses anyways. So Enchanter is the last one over here, and we're just going to get all of these nodes, and that will wrap up the build in terms of the Paragon board. Again, make sure you guys read if you guys are having any problems. There's a bunch of optional things. And if you do want to reach that 15k armor, which I actually have, let me go ahead and do this. So I think it's at like 58 seconds where I open up the inventory over here. Now, just as a heads up, this will require you to activate a elixir. I think it's somewhere over here where I open up the tree. So here, I'm going to pause it and I'm going to move this out of the way so you guys can see how much armor you can actually achieve in this build. So you can get 15,000 armor, which is more than enough. It's just that I want to be way over capped, because sometimes when Disobedience isn't activated at maximum stacks, it feels like you take a bunch of damage, right? So there are some options here if you do want to go ahead and choose them. It is available for you guys as far as the options, because if you want to go ahead and run to Bolts, then you're going to be a little bit squishier, but it will give you some more mana if you are having mana problems. But in this gameplay right here, I'm not running it, and we're just deleting content left and right. You can also consider, if you want to become unstoppable, you can consider running the Metamorphosis, but like I had no problems just blazing through these Sigil 100s in terms of like the crowd control. I didn't have too much of an issue because Teleport is a very awesome skill. Same thing with Flame Shield, that will give you unstoppable as well. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know down below, and I'll be sure to update it usually via the Mobilytics guide. But check the pinned comment, and I'll have the link for the build guide. But that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new, and I'll show you guys gameplay of this absolute shredding Avatar of Zero. Anyways, take care. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.